All right, welcome back. Hope you all had a great weekend. Today we're continuing our review of our latest RBT practice exam. We are staying with this format because people seem to enjoy it. So we'll do a few more exams in this format before we switch to a new one. As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out rbtexamreview.com for all of our study materials. We have for 3 full practice exams, a task list study guide, and of course, our combo pack comes with everything. When you do pass, let us know so we can include you in our shout out. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard, and get to our questions. Okay, starting off, a behavior plan that calls for you to deliver reinforcement every 3 minutes throughout the day, regardless of behavior, is utilizing what intervention? This is a very specific intervention question. We know we have a behavior plan, and we know our intervention says we're going to be delivering reinforcement every 3 minutes regardless of behavior. And that's the key, because if we were delivering reinforcement every 3 minutes, then we could start to argue for some sort of fixed interval schedule, right? Maybe we think every 3 minutes, the first response gets reinforced, but instead it clarifies that regardless of the behavior, we're still giving reinforcement. And when you deliver reinforcement, no matter what behavior is occurring and not contingent on any behavior, what are you utilizing? Well, it's not contingent reinforcement. Remember, a contingency is an if-then statement. If you do this, then you do this. If you clean your room, then you get allowance. We are delivering consequences contingent on something happening. In this case, we're not delivering consequences contingent on anything. Regardless of what happens, we're still giving reinforcement every 3 minutes. Therefore, we are delivering non-contingent reinforcement, a very important intervention for you to know. It's not punishment because obviously we're talking about reinforcement. Goes back to we need to read our question and really absorb what the question is saying. And then a variable interval schedule of reinforcement. Even if this wasn't non-contingent reinforcement, we're delivering reinforcement every 3 minutes. Is that variable or is that fixed? Well, of course, that's fixed. So it's not going to be a variable interval schedule. So a behavior plan that calls for you to deliver reinforcement every 3 minutes throughout the day, regardless of behavior, is utilizing a non-contingent reinforcement procedure. Which of the following signals a consequence is available? Antecedents to behavior. We have MOs, motivating operations. We have SDs, discriminative stimuli, and we have prompts. You need to know which each one of these 3 does or do. Motivating operations alter the value of the consequences. Okay, so they increase or decrease the value of consequences. SDs, or discriminative stimuli, evoke the behavior or signal a consequence is available, meaning you could have an MO, meaning you could want something or the value is increased. Without an SD, that thing isn't available. So the MO is going to alter the value. The SD is going to say this thing is available. And then a prompt, okay, is a cue that becomes a temporary SD in order to evoke the behavior you want to see, right? So we're queuing up the behavior we want to see. We're prompting out what response we're looking for. In this case, which of the following signals and consequences available? Well, we just said an SD does this because when you give an SD or an instruction, you evoke a behavior. And the reason the SD evokes behavior is because that behavior has been reinforced in the presence of that SD in the past. That SD obtains stimulus control. So now when you give the SD, it signals to your learner that a consequence is available. So again, a motivating operation alters the value of consequences. Discriminative stimuli, or SDs, signals a consequence is available. 5 minutes elapses and your client says ball, so you deliver a token to the client. 5 more minutes elapses and your client says ball, so you deliver a token to your client. This happens 3 more times. What type of schedule does this most likely represent? Now compare this to our first question. No longer is this non-contingent, right? What is it contingent on? Well, it's contingent on your client saying ball after the 5-minute elapses. So this is contingent reinforcement. Now we're on a specific reinforcement schedule. We have to ask ourselves, right? Are we looking at something fixed or are we looking at something variable? And are we looking at something that's an interval or a ratio? And it's up to you which piece you tackle first. but you need to go step by step. So let's just start with fixed versus variable. Fixed means what? Fixed means the amount of time or the amount of responses is unchanging. Variable means the amount of time or responses is based on an average or it is changing. In this case, we have 5 minutes. We have 5 more minutes, and it happens 3 more times. So it's always going to be 5 minutes. Was that fixed or variable? Obviously, that's fixed. It's unchanging. So now we ask ourselves, are we dealing with an interval or a ratio? Well, we know a ratio has to do with the number of responses. Interval has to do with time. In this case, we have 5 minutes and then a response, 5 more minutes, and a response happens 3 more times. We are worried about the 5 minutes passing and then the response. Until that 5 minutes elapses, it doesn't matter how many times the client says ball. We're not delivering reinforcement. It's all contingent on the response occurring after the 5 minutes elapses. So, put it all together, we have a fixed interval schedule. What type of schedule does this represent? A, fixed, not changing, interval, time. Of the following behaviors, what behavior would you be least likely to measure with discontinuous measurement? What do we know about measurement? We know we have continuous measurement where we're measuring every instance of a behavior, things like rate, frequency, duration, latency, and IRT. And we have discontinuous measurement where we're only measuring behavior during certain parts of the day or certain parts of the session. Now, when choosing this type of measurement, a discontinuous measurement, a lot of times it's used when resources are low, when time is low, or when you have other things to worry about. Also, in other cases, discontinuous measurement would be inappropriate for behaviors that don't happen often. And why would that be? Well, if the behavior doesn't happen very often and we're using a discontinuous measurement, chances are greater that the behavior won't occur during the times we're measuring. For example, if I have a 3-hour session and I'm only using discontinuous measurement for 15 minutes, well, we just have to hope that behavior happens during the 15 minutes. So a low rate behavior isn't going to be great for discontinuous measurement. So keep that in mind, right? So of the following behaviors, which behavior would you be least likely to measure with discontinuous measurement? A, hand flapping that happens several times throughout the day. Now, this is a high rate behavior, meaning if we only were measuring behavior for 20 minutes, there's still a good chance we're going to get instances of hand flapping because it happens several times throughout the day. B, a client completing homework, which happens every day for about an hour. Okay, another good example. It's predictable, right? So if we have a 3-hour session and we know every single day this client does homework for an hour, well, we can predict when we can use discontinuous measurement. B is also okay. C, aggression, which happens once or twice a week. Now, this is tougher, right? If it only happens once or twice a week, can we really anticipate when it's going to occur? Well, maybe not. So there's a good chance that if we use discontinuous measurement, we're going to miss all instances of aggression. And the measurement's not going to do us any good. Meaning, for this type of behavior, a low rate behavior or behavior that happens infrequently or unpredictably, we really want to use continuous measurement to ensure we're measuring every time it occurs. Again, it's not too hard to use continuous measurement when it happens once or twice a week because it's going to be very obvious and you'll be ready for it. And then D, peer interaction, which happens every day at recess. Again, similar to the client completing homework, recess happens every day. So we can anticipate when peer interaction is going to happen, and we can set up some sort of discontinuous measurement procedure when that behavior is most likely to happen. For C, aggression, which happens once or twice a week, we really can't anticipate it occurring. Therefore, it's going to be difficult to set up any sort of discontinuous measurement to capture aggression occurring. Your BCBA designs an intervention with an extinction procedure. After training you on extinction, they train the parents. How often should extinction be used across you, the parents, and anyone else working with the client? This is an important thing to remember. When we take on a client, our services don't stop when we leave. ABA needs to be occurring all the time. If we only see a client for 10, 15 hours a week, and then intervention never occurs again, we're not going to see a lot of progress. We need to get to the point where we're consistently delivering interventions and behavior change procedures throughout the day, throughout parents, teachers, stakeholders, us, etc. Now, this question is specifically asking about an extinction procedure. And we know extinction is what? It's withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. When you use extinction, it's extremely, extremely important that you use extinction and you implement extinction consistently, meaning as close to 100% of the time as possible. The reason being is when we start to withhold reinforcement, we're starting to extend out that reinforcement schedule. So if the client is used to getting reinforced every 5 responses and I implement extinction, now the client might have engaged in 15 responses and not received reinforcement. If I give in and reinforce on the 15th response, well, I've just created a variable ratio schedule, which is a lot harder to put on extinction than a fixed ratio. So when we use extinction, we need to be sure everyone's ready, everyone understands, and everyone is capable of doing it. The question asks specifically, how often should extinction be used across everybody? Half the time is not nearly enough. Okay, that's going to be more detrimental than not using extinction at all. Over half of the time is better, but not specific enough. 80% of the time is better than half the time, but D, as close to 100% of the time as possible, is really what we're looking for. Now, nobody's perfect, so it might occasionally screw up, but as long as we are getting as close to 100% extinction as possible, that's what we're really looking for. The final behavior in a shaping procedure is called what? Okay, kind of a fluency check. Real quick, easy question. A lot of the questions on the exam aren't too difficult, all right? Especially if you've prepared, right? Easy questions, don't overthink them. Read the question, understand it, give your best answer. So if we're looking for the final behavior in a shaping procedure, what are we looking for? Is this respondent behavior? Now, if you're an RBT, you don't need to be familiar with respondent behavior. Okay, this is a BCBA term, but the final behavior in the shaping procedure is not called respondent behavior. Shaping is an operant procedure. What about a terminal behavior? Yes, with shaping, we're reinforcing successive approximations of a behavior until we reach this terminal behavior or this final behavior. The final behavior in a shaping procedure is a terminal behavior. It's not a generalized behavior because just because we reach a terminal behavior or our goal doesn't mean it's generalized, right? And it's not a prompted behavior because if we're doing shaping right, our terminal behavior should be our final behavior and it should be evoked by just an SD. So the final behavior in a shaping procedure is a terminal behavior. When using a token economy, which of the following is something that cannot be forgotten? Harder to attack this question up front because it's vague, but we do have a term where we can define. So a token economy, what do we know about a token economy? We know that we use tokens, obviously. We know that we need a reinforcement schedule. We know that we need backup reinforcers to pair with the tokens. Now, if that's all we can remember, that's okay. Okay, at least we're thinking about the token economy before tackling the answer choices. What you don't want to do is just read the question and then jump to the answer choices, okay? Start to break down the question first. So when using a token economy, which is something that cannot be forgotten, what do we need in a token economy? How about using a response cost procedure? Do we have to use a response cost procedure? No, it is not necessary. Can we? Sure, but if you don't use it, it's not a big deal, okay? So it can be forgotten. What about shaping the behavior? Well, if we're using a token economy, a lot of times we already have that behavior in our repertoire. We don't need a shape, okay? So it's not something that's necessary. C, identifying backup reinforcers. Yes, you have to have backup reinforcers in a token economy. The only way these tokens are going to gain reinforcing properties is when they're paired with backup reinforcers. We exchange tokens for those backup reinforcers. And then D, putting the target behavior on extinction. Extinction isn't necessarily a part of a token economy unless it's part of a bigger treatment package. The only answer here, which we can't forget, is identifying backup reinforcers. Backup reinforcers give the tokens their reinforcing properties. The word sensory is often used interchangeably with what function of behavior. I get this question all the time. I guess a lot of the new 40-hour programs are teaching this, which is fine, but we still need to know the actual technical term, okay? Sensory is also known as what? Is it tangible, escape, automatic, or attention? Well, it's going to be automatic. Okay. Sensory, automatic are often used interchangeably. Automatic is the technical definition for this function. It just means alone. It means non-socially mediated. It means you don't need somebody delivering the reinforcer. It's happening by yourself. The reason sensory is often used interchangeably is because a lot of times things like hand flapping and eye gazing and all these little things we consider self-stimulatory, okay, are often lumped into sensory category. Sensory and automatic are the same exact thing. So if you see it on the exam, just know functionally they're the same. And then finally, look at the following answer choices. Which of the answer choices does not describe extinction? Okay. Does not describe extinction. So we're looking for the one that has nothing to do with extinction. A, withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. That is extinction. So that perfectly describes extinction. B, a punishment procedure. Is extinction a punishment procedure? It is not. Common misconception, common mistake. Extinction is not a punishment procedure. Don't make that mistake. Does extinction decrease behavior? It does. And can extinction temporarily increase behavior? It can. If there's if there's an extinction burst, that is a temporary increase in behavior before behavior decreases. So after looking at the following answer choices, and which of the following answer choices does not describe extinction? B, a punishment procedure. Okay, thanks for watching. Check out rbtexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Question, comments, let us know. When you pass, please let us know so we can include you in our shout out. Other than that, work hard, study hard. See you soon.